All right, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Mikaelian. I work for the City of Pasadena, managing the general plan update. And I want to thank everyone for coming here on such a beautiful Saturday morning. Actually, I see a lot of familiar faces, but then I see a lot of new faces as well. So what I wanted to do was just kind of go a little bit over our background as far as how we got to the point where we're at right now. Basically, we are updating the city's general plan. And general plan is basically the blueprint for the city. It guides the city's future, and everything that the city does is to be consistent with this document. And every city in the state has one, and it's basically made up of different elements or chapters, and they cover, there's 7 that are required, and you have a lot of optional elements too that a city can have. So Pasadena has, a lot of different elements, but the 2 that we're updating right now is land use, which basically talks about growth and where things should go and how the city should look in the future. And then also mobility, which is about moving people and moving goods throughout the city. And just an update too, because the city is always updating things. And recently the city just completed an update on its open space and conservation element, and that just got approved by the city council. So, and then the other thing that the city is working on right now is an economic development strategic plan. It's not part of the general plan, but it's something that feeds into this process, and that's something that's underway right now too. So the general plan started about almost 3 years ago, and what we did was we did the first phase, which lasted about a year, and that was really about a lot of community outreach and really asking the community, what are the issues, what are the challenges facing the city, what are some of the priorities that the plan should focus on. And so we did a lot of community meetings, we had a large open house, we did tours of the city, and then that ended with a report, which is called the Outreach Summary Report, which basically summarized everything that we heard from the community. And that report basically served as one of the foundations or one of the tools that we used as we continue to do the updates. So the second part really was drafting alternatives. We had a community charrette, which was an intense workshop in the fall of 2010. Actually, that started in this room as well. And at the end of the charrette, we ended up with 4 land use alternatives. So, and then the third phase really was analyzing those alternatives. We had different workshops provide with information on those alternatives. And we did a community survey last spring and summer to get feedback on all the alternatives. And so the phase that we're in right now is basically looking at the policies. And also at the same time too, we're working on the map as well, the land use map. But this meeting is really focusing on the policies. And just to say basically, again, the general plan has 7 guiding principles. They basically serve as the city's vision. And under the guiding principles are objectives and policies as far as how the city would basically incorporate that vision, or how the guiding principles would be implemented in the city. And then the general plan then also has a section on implementation measures as well, as far as specific tools or specific ways that the city would then implement the policy. So these are the guiding principles of the city. So everything kind of starts with this. Some of the discussions at the table will be on the guiding principles as well. We had a lot of feedback on the principles over the past 2 to 3 years. And so that is part of the discussion as well. But for the most part, it's the policies that support the guiding principles. So I just kind of want to highlight the one principle in particular, number 7, because that's really talks about public participation. And that's really, why we have community workshops like this, is because, the general plan update, really its foundation has been community input, and, it's part of the general plan as well. As far as the policy topic, we have been working on this piece of it for quite some time. Again, we're doing land use and mobility. So under land use, this past fall, we met with the city's planning commission and had an introductory discussion on the policies. And what staff did was, because the policies is there's a couple hundred different policies, and it's many pages long as well. So it's very hard to have a discussion on the policies because it's so general and there's so much material there. So what staff did was, we narrowed the scope, and we looked at the community comments that we received for the past 3 years, and then we also looked at what other cities have done. We looked at award-winning general plans to see what kind of policies they had in place. And really what we did was we identified some of the gaps that maybe our existing general plan maybe didn't cover. Something like sustainability, for example, when the plan was last adopted, the word really wasn't used. It wasn't part of planning vocabulary. So that's something, even though the plan has sustainability in it, it wasn't really packaged in that way. Other things such as urban design, that was something that was in our existing plan, but we heard so much from the community regarding that topic that we felt that the existing general plan maybe didn't have enough depth on that topic. So that would be something that maybe we want to enhance or expand upon. So that's kind of some of the things that we did in this first phase. And then with the mobility element, our transportation department worked with their commission, Transportation Advisory Commission, and they had a subcommittee as well. And they pretty much did the same thing as well. Looked at the existing general plan and saw what pieces of it maybe needed to be updated. Again, transportation is something that's been changing a lot over the past 5–10 years. So they wanted to, really see what areas need to be modernized in a sense. And last fall, they also had a series of workshops with the community to really talk about some of the projects that they're working on and how that would feed into the element update. In January of this year, then we took all that information and shared it with city commissioners, and then had a discussion, format of a workshop very similar to this. And now we're having this discussion with the community as well. So what we did was basically we lumped all the discussions into really 4 different topic areas. That's where we have 4 tables. Sustainability, open space and conservation, and then urban design, historic preservation and arts, and then mobility, and then economic vitality, education, and other topics. So what I'm going to do is just briefly go over each of those topics here, and then go over the format of how this workshop would work. So under sustainability, again, that was a term that wasn't used much years ago. It's definitely something that we hear about all the time. So the different areas are land use, building and site design, how do you construct buildings to be energy efficient and so forth. Economics and social equity, sustainability, a lot of people just think of it as being an environmental topic, but it really includes, there's really 3 legs of sustainability, or 3 pieces of it. It's economics, environmental, and then also social equity as well. So we call it the 3 E's. Diversity of housing, again, that kind of feeds into sustainability as well, because of how it, as far as with economics and income levels, being able to afford housing. And then conservation and open space as well. As I mentioned earlier, that we have a whole element that discusses conservation and open space. So typically land use wouldn't have a lengthy discussion on it, but our existing general plan does have those topics in it, and so we want to keep that in there. And really the main goal at this point is that whatever we put in the land use element would be consistent with what was just approved by the city council. Urban design, historic preservation, and arts and culture. Sense of place, as far as visually how you make different neighborhoods and parts of the city look unique. Contextual design, as far as when you have new buildings and architecture, how should that fit in to their new locations. Architectural excellence is something that we hear a lot about, as far as Pasadena has a long history of very high quality architecture. Pedestrian orientation, as far as to using architecture as a way to encourage walking and bicycling. And then of course, historic preservation, which the city has a long history of that. And then arts and culture as well, which that was one of the things that really the general plan didn't touch on at all. Arts and culture, that's something we heard from in the community, and it's something that we do have a lot of public art, and that's something that the city continues to embrace. Under mobility, there's a lot of discussion about streets and community character. As far as neighborhood protection measures, that's something that's in the existing general plan, so how should that be changed and improved upon. And then basically, traditionally, a lot of the older mobility elements really just talk about cars. And one of the things that our city has been focusing on is really going beyond just cars, but about bicycles and pedestrian, and really talking about complete streets that basically move all different types of people. And then strategies for economic development, as well as how those things are linked as far as getting goods and people to commercial areas, again, for economic purposes. And then under economic vitality, this is something that there was a continuous debate on since the beginning of the process as far as growth of the central district, as far as supporting existing buildings, businesses, technology, and then the retail sector. And another thing we heard of a lot in the first phase was parking, as far as parking being a significant issue with businesses who want to expand, but also a concern of residents who live next to commercial districts. They're concerned about spillover parking if there's not enough in the district. So a lot of the topics that are economic vitality really come from the draft strategic plan that's been circulated throughout the city, again, because we're looking for consistency. And then under education is something that we've heard of a lot as well. Typically education isn't a core land use issue, but it is something we've heard a lot from the community. And so the question is, if it's to be incorporated in the general plan, how would that work and what type of policies should be incorporated into it? And so that's really the first discussion is education and how that would fit into the general plan. And some of the ways that it can fit would be sharing of facilities, planning for schools, as far as there's a unified school district, but then the city is also home to numerous educational facilities, universities and training, private schools and so forth. So how would that fit in and how expansive should that discussion be? And then there was also some discussions in the past about uses around schools, in particular those commercial areas around schools, and how can those be planned or to advantage of the school being so close by. So how this workshop is going to work is we have 4 tables. And so what we would do is people could basically go to whichever table they want. And we basically have, it's almost like a mini conference where you have different sessions. And so we basically have half-hour sessions, 3 half-hour sessions. So if you wanted to, for the first session, you can go to sustainability open space, have a discussion there. And then for the second session, you can go to table 3 and discuss mobility and so forth. So this way then, people can go to the different tables that maybe they have the most interest on, or have maybe, things to share about, or things that maybe they don't know that much about and they wanted to get a better understanding of it. We also have, comment cards as well. So if there's additional things you want to talk about, you can fill out a comment card as well. And just real quick, what we did was, again, to help kind of narrow the scope, this is on the tables. So when you split up into your tables, we'll grab one of these. And what we did was, we have the full text of what's been discussed and reviewed. And then we highlighted the things in particular that either we really wanted to make sure that we got feedback on those items, or we maybe need, maybe there's an existing tension within that topic area, or it could be something new in the general plan that we wanted to see, kind of what is the opinion of it. Certainly the discussion is not limited to the areas highlighted in yellow, but again, because we have limited time, that we just wanted to make sure that we really captured those topic areas. So what I wanted to do was just maybe introduce some staff members as well, and who's going to be facilitating. Or I'm going to be working with Annabella, where's Annabella? With Annabella, we're going to be doing sustainability. And we have our consultant, Woody Tesher. On table 2, doing urban design with Ricky Chima as well. And table 3 is Jenny Cusales. Where's Jenny? Okay. And also Mark Gamron as well. They'll be doing transportation. And then table number 4 for economic housing and education, Scott Reimers. And then also, where's Jeff and Amanda are also going to be helping facilitate with that as well. We also have one of the big pieces of the general plan is our committee. We have a general plan update advisory committee, and they've been helping us all throughout the process, as well as planning and coordinating how this workshop will work. So we have a lot of different GPOC members in attendance today. Do you all want to give a raise of hands for the GPOC members who are here? here to basically participate, but also they have a lot of background as far as how we got to this point as well. So they'll be kind of maybe wearing two hats as far as participating like members of the community, but they're also chiming in if there's questions and they're able to answer those questions as well. Well, the other thing too that I really wanted to point out, and this is something that was brought up with our G-Talk too, is yes, we have 4 tables and they're in different corners of the room, but the reality is all these things are interrelated and they're all really connected. It's just for practicality that we're having a discussion in separate tables, because if we just had one big table, it would be very unorganized to have a discussion. But in reality, sustainability covers mobility and like we said, urban design has an effect on economic vitality, and education, affects, economics as well. So everything's really connected. So when you have discussion, think about how that connects with other topic areas. So, if you're having a discussion about sustainability, how would that affect economics, or how would that affect mobility, and so forth. So we're kind of at that phase of the general plan where we're nearing the end of the update process. So these things are going to start linking together, and how they affect each other is something that is now going to be something that we're going to be thinking about much more frequently. So that is, and then really moving forward to just talk about what we do with the information that we get from this workshop. And the main thing is, and can you just go back? So we're at number 4. And so we're going to be reviewing the policies and basically developing the concept map, which is, again, talks about the land uses, what type of uses goes where in the community. And then this fall, then, from spring into the fall, then we would be presenting that map to the community as well as the council and the commission, and then beginning the environmental review of it. So this is kind of more of a close-up for this year as far as what we're going to be doing. This is going to be a very busy, important year for the general plan. So again, this spring, we have this workshop, and then we're going to be working on the policies or the discussion here, will then help feed into the map, as well as the plan update. And then we will be going back to the community later this spring, presenting more information, including that map. And then this summer, then, we would spend a lot of time doing detailed analysis of everything. And then this fall, then we would go to the commission, to the city council, with basically the concept map, as well as the policies as well. And then by the end of the year, then we would start the environmental review process. So on that note, do we have any questions? Noel?
Spanish.
Oh yes, if there is members that need Spanish translation, we do have people here that speak Spanish and can walk them through the process. Or I don't know if you want to say it in Spanish.
No.
Question. We're going to move to a table. I assume the people in the middle will move to a table also. Clearly, we're going to run around the table. So what do you suggest?
Well, we can pull the chairs over. So we're not going to reassemble in the middle. So we can break the chairs around. This is a fabulous turnout that we have this morning. So. Yes, Scott?
We have 55, so we'll need about 12 to 13 people at each table to start off with, and then we can change. You get a chance to go to each table.
Yes,
Where are the restrooms?
oh, sorry.
That's part of sustainability.
The restrooms, you basically go through this door, through the other door, and then there's the right.
You may want to check when I did that earlier, the door was locked, and moving back, so
Yeah, and then it's going back to you.
the restroom door.
The doors are possible when you come back in, otherwise you just walk, just outside.
Can you explain what the comment cards are for? Are those going to be
Sure.
submitted at the end? Or?
Sure, what the comment cards are for is basically, again, because we're only here for a limited period of time, so if there's additional things that you would like to share, or there's a table that you still have comments for and you want to go to that table, you have to leave early, what you do is you would fill out a comment card. There's a checkbox that's up at the top as far as what topic it is that you're talking about. And then there's just space for you to just write really anything that is related to that topic. So you can fill it all on one card, or you can get multiple cards. We have a lot to say about economic vitality. You can do that on one card and mobility on another. There's no limit on the number of cards we fill out. We just want to make sure that everyone had an opportunity to share their ideas and what's on their minds, and sometimes verbally you can't get it all out there, so we want to make sure that people still are not compliant. Anything else? Yes?
Would you remind us again where the line is between policies and implementation? And some of us think that we need to be drastically thinking right now about changing certain things, like the type of zoning that we have, but we're often told that's an implementation, and therefore we can't talk about it really right now. But what is your current thinking about that?
Sure, that's a really good question. Again, the guiding principles are very, very broad, and then policies are really a discussion of what you want to be. So it would be, again, broad as far as language design. What would be a good example for design as far as
For design.
for design would be, let's say,
Great architectural character that is consistent with the character of the historic character of the city. That would be a policy. Implementation might then say, write a code or design guidelines to do that. So it's a tier. Policies must be by state law action-oriented, but the implementation program is action that carries out the policy.
So I mean, it's okay at this point if the discussion kind of goes back and forth. But I guess the thing is don't get so focused in the details, because we're going to have to then take those really focused details and take a step back.
Let me just elaborate for a second, just for clarity too. It's really important, for example, I think you had your comment was about revising the code to do something.
Moving away from FAR to...
Oh, yeah, okay, then it's
then
it's important that you make sure in the plan are policies that give you, in effect, what that code should do. In other words, if you want to basically, in the future, affect the form, character of development, make sure that's in the policy, because if it's not in the policy, then you don't really have direction for the code.
Well, that's exactly the point, because if you don't bring it up now, you never can get back to it.
Well, think about what the purpose of updating that code would be.
Yeah.
Think about it from that perspective.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know if you did, should we do
Move on.
No, we're going to float, right?
Actually,
We'll
she might
stand.
actually float as
We'll
well.
stand.
Yeah, I think maybe we can do that. Okay. And what we will do is, I'm going to do table work, but I will also be timekeeper as well. So what we will have is about half an hour with each group. So that would allow us to be out of here around 11:30. And so I will then just give a 5 minute.